Right, let's dive straight into the madness surrounding Rangers right now, because there's been no shortage of drama coming out of Ibrox over the past 24 hours. And as usual, Joey Barton's right in the middle of it, stirring the pot in a way only he knows how. Now, if there's one thing we all know about Barton, it's that he doesn't do filters. Never has, never will. And this latest blast at Rangers boss Russell Martin is classic Joey, blunt, brutal, and surprisingly for once, resonating with a large chunk of the fan base. That alone should tell you how rocky things have become at the club. When Barton, a man who usually splits opinion like a blunt axe, starts speaking and the Rangers' support actually nods along. Well, that's when you know the cracks are turning into canyons. In his typical no-holds-barred fashion, Barton laid into Martin, questioning not just his tactics, but the entire vibe he brings to the club. He mocked Martin's post-match positivity after defeats, sarcastically mimicking that "we played well" nonsense as if a narrow loss should be something to celebrate at Rangers. And you know what? Barton's not wrong to call that out. At a club where second best has never been good enough, hearing the manager patting backs after defeats has grated on fans who've been raised on a diet of trophies, grit, and high expectations. He went further, slipping into a pretty spot-on Scottish accent to mock how supporters might see Martin, someone who's shown up and is seen as totally out of his depth. Barton didn't hold back, calling him a tit, and saying the Rangers faithful want someone like Walter Smith, a manager who understands the fabric of the club, who bleeds blue and knows exactly what it takes to handle the weight that comes with leading this institution. And that's the word, institution. Barton compared Rangers to Manchester United in terms of stature and expectations, and he's not wrong. This isn't some mid-table rebuild project. This is Rangers Football Club. You don't get to come in, tinker around with ideas, and lose to teams you should be putting away in your sleep. Especially not with Celtic breathing down your neck every week and a Champions League qualification spot hanging in the balance. Barton even hinted at the serious consequences of missing out on Europe's top competition, saying it'd be a rude awakening for both sides of the old firm if they slip up. Financially, it's massive. The gap between the rest of the Scottish Premiership and the top two is growing, but only if you actually make those European nights count. And Rangers, if they don't sort themselves out quickly, are staring down the barrel of yet another campaign defined by underachievement and chaos. Now, let's talk about the other story that's turning heads, Clinton Niala. Remember back in January when the young French defender stepped off the pitch after that dominant 3-0 win over Aberdeen, earning man-of-the-match honors and praise from fans and pundits alike? It felt like the start of something special. He'd only arrived the previous summer, signed from AC Milan's youth system for pennies in modern football terms, around £30,000, as part of Rangers' new cost-cutting, high-upside recruitment strategy. For a moment, it looked like Niala was the poster boy for this approach. Young, cheap, relatively unknown, and already showing signs of becoming a regular. But as with so many things at Rangers recently, that promise didn't last long. Fast forward 9 months, and it's a very different picture. Niala's been frozen out, relegated to training with the under-19s or cast off alongside players who are already considered surplus to requirements. Despite his early promise, despite his clear left-footed quality, something Rangers have desperately lacked, he's now sitting on the fringes, watching new signings stumble their way through performances. He posted a defiant "still here" message on Instagram recently, and you can feel the frustration. Because for all the talk about giving youth a chance, about smart scouting and building something sustainable, here's a player who seems to tick all the boxes and yet can't get a look in. It's baffling. His only real run in the team came during an injury crisis under Philippe Clement. He started off shaky, sure, but as the games went on, he showed genuine growth, holding his own against St. Johnstone, showing composure against Aberdeen. He looked like a player worth developing. But when Clement left, so too did Niala's opportunity. Barry Ferguson came in and quickly decided he wasn't ready, subbing him off early against Kilmarnock and then barely using him again. Even when he did get another shot, like in that Europa League clash against Athletic Club, he didn't look rattled. He looked calm, capable. Yet somehow, that still wasn't enough. The club brought in more defenders over the summer. Emmanuel Fernandez from Peterborough, a loan deal for Derek Cornelius from Marseille, even Wolves loanee Nasser, and Niala slipped even further down the pecking order. And this is where fans are starting to ask real questions. Why invest so much money? Rangers spend around £20 million net this summer, and yet still rely so heavily on the same old core. Butland, Tavernier, Souter, Raskin, they're still carrying the team. Most of the new signings haven't delivered, and yet a young, low-cost defender like Niala is sitting on the sidelines, watching all of it unfold. Left back is another headache. Jayden McGee has stepped up well, tucking inside as part of Russell Martin's new tactical shape. But with guys like Jeff Day, Yilmaz, and Robbie Fraser all gone, he's now the only true left back left at the club. And again, the question comes up, why hasn't Niala even been considered as a depth option, especially when teams like Westerlo and Dynamo Kiev were showing interest? Clearly there's some talent there. According to reports, Niala had a really honest conversation with Martin. What was said in that meeting is anyone's guess, but the result was another young player pushed aside at a time when the club could really use energy and hunger. It all ties back to a broader issue, direction. What exactly is the vision here? Martin insists the club needs time. That change takes patience, but time isn't a luxury you get at Rangers. Especially not when the team has managed just one win in 6 league games, and that one came thanks to a stoppage-time goal against Livingston. The margin for error is razor thin, and right now, Martin's balancing on that blade. His public comments haven't helped either. He says the criticism doesn't affect him, claims he walked straight down the tunnel last Sunday so the players could enjoy their win. Fair enough. But then he goes on about how he's saddened to see young kids in the stands swearing at him, flipping the finger with their dads right beside them. And look, it's never pleasant, but that's Glasgow football. That's what you get when the fans feel the standards are slipping and the manager isn't delivering. He talks about how much effort everyone is putting in, from the physios to the backroom staff, and how unified the dressing room is. And maybe that's true, but the only thing that matters to fans is results. Not Instagram messages, not unity speeches. Results. Wins. And right now, that's where it's all falling apart. This club has always demanded the best, not empty promises or long-term plans that never materialize. And until Martin and the board figure out what this rebuild is really supposed to look like, players like Niala will continue to suffer, while fans are left wondering how the club with one of the highest net spends in Scotland still looks like it's trying to find its feet. There's something deeper unraveling here, something that goes beyond just poor form or a dodgy transfer window. What we're seeing is a disconnect between the manager and the support, between the club's vision and its execution, and most worryingly, between what Rangers say they are building and what actually shows up on the pitch every week. Russell Martin keeps pointing to change as the reason for the inconsistency. And yes, change can be messy. You bring in a new manager, you shift recruitment strategies, you let go of key figures behind the scenes. All of that will shake the foundations. But when that change comes without clear progress, without real improvement in performances or results, the fans will lose patience quickly. This isn't a fan base known for tolerance, and they shouldn't be. Rangers aren't a club that can afford to write off a season as part of some long-term experiment. Look at the numbers. 1 win from 6 in the Premiership. 1. And even that was saved by a goal in stoppage time. That's not a rebuild. That's a collapse. And no amount of tactical jargon or behind-the-scenes positivity is going to convince fans otherwise. Especially not when every match day feels like a roll of the dice. Will they turn up today, or will it be another flat, disjointed performance that leaves fans heading for the exits long before the final whistle? Martin has talked a lot about unity inside the building, how the players are together, how the staff are all in. But unity behind closed doors means nothing if it doesn't translate to the pitch. Fans aren't watching team bonding sessions. They're watching matches where the midfield disappears, where the defense crumbles under pressure, and where no one seems willing to grab the game by the scruff of the neck. And in that kind of chaos, the spotlight always lands on the manager. Martin may be calm in his interviews, but the storm outside is growing louder with every passing week. There's a sense now that the supporters have stopped listening. It's no longer about giving time or backing a process. It's about results. And if they don't come soon, the club will have a much bigger decision to make. Because Rangers aren't just fighting for lead position here. They're fighting for credibility. Every dropped point is another dent in the trust fans have in this current setup. Every poor signing, every confusing team selection, every quote that feels like a deflection, it all builds the same picture. a club that's lost its identity and doesn't know how to get it back. Then Niala's situation might seem small in the grand scheme, but it's symbolic. Here's a player who, at his best, offered something different: composure on the ball, a left-footed presence, a physical profile that could grow into something valuable. And yet, when the chips were down, he was nowhere near the team. Not because he'd failed spectacularly, but because the manager made a judgment call that he wasn't ready. Fair enough, that's his job. But then you look at the defenders brought in ahead of him, and it just doesn't stack up. Emmanuel Fernandez was signed with high hopes, but has barely made an impact. Cornelius came on loan and has shown flashes, but he's not a game changer. Nasser has barely been seen. So the question becomes, what was the plan? Was the idea really to bring in quantity over quality? And if so, how is that any better than giving a chance to someone already in the building who had shown promise under the previous manager? That's the contradiction fans are choking on right now. The club says it wants to develop young talent, find value in the market, and build a squad that can compete without breaking the bank. But when push comes to shove, the same faces are leaned on, the same gaps go unfilled, and players like Niala are left wondering what they're even doing at the club. The same can be said for other departments across the pitch. You look at midfield, where Raskin has come back into form, and Tavernier, still one of the key leaders despite the criticism. But beyond them, there's a serious lack of drive, of ideas, of players who can turn a match on its head. And up front, Shame was brought in for £10 million from Everton, a huge statement of intent, but he's still being labeled a project. A £10 million project? That's a luxury Rangers can't afford right now. When you consider the net spend this summer, it's staggering to think how few of those signings have become nailed-on starters. The reality is, this team is still being carried by the core that existed before Martin arrived. The so-called new era hasn't really started. It's been more of a pause, an expensive, confusing pause. And all of this has filtered into the atmosphere around the club. The fans aren't angry because of one bad result. They're angry because it feels like there's no real direction. They're showing up week after week hoping for signs of progress, and instead, they get hollow interviews and performances that lack urgency. Even Martin's attempts to downplay the criticism come across as detached. He says he's fine with fans directing their anger at him, that he gets it, that it's part of the job. But then he brings up how kids are giving him abuse from the stands, and how that saddened him. And look, no one wants to see that. But the bigger issue isn't the gestures in the crowd. It's the football. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. The streets around Ibrox have been buzzing louder than usual this week, with whispers turning into confident nods and knowing smiles. Word is spreading fast, and though no official announcement has yet lit up the Rangers channels, the rumor mill insists it's done. Oliver Burke, the prodigal forward once hailed as Scotland's next great hope, is said to be heading back home and straight into the blue shirt of Rangers. Supporters have grown used to transfer chatter at this time of year, but this one carries a different weight, a different urgency. Burke, who burst onto the scene with pace and power that had Europe's scouts clamoring for signatures, has long been seen as the one who got away. A Scottish talent who found himself in Germany, England, Spain, never quite anchoring himself in one place, never quite meeting the expectations that once framed him. Yet the whispers suggest that Rangers believe they can unlock the potential still brimming in his boots. The timing feels telling. Rangers, desperate to inject fresh energy into their attack, may see Burke as the risk worth taking, a statement of intent both to their rivals and to their own faithful. Imagine the sight: Burke charging down the wing at Ibrox, the Govan stand rising with every stride. That image alone is enough to set pulses racing. The talk is that the deal is sealed, paperwork tucked away, waiting only for the ceremonial unveiling. Of course, until scarves are held aloft and the cameras flash, all remains in the realm of speculation. Still, there is something about the sheer confidence of those speaking in hushed tones outside the pubs and training grounds, a certainty that betrays more than idle gossip. If true, this could be the move that reignites Burke's career and gifts Rangers a weapon they've long been craving. For now, the official word stays silent, but the hum of anticipation grows louder by the day. And in Glasgow, such silence often means only one thing. The storm is about to break. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.